Okay, it started.
Hey, hello everyone.
Hey
How
everyone,
is my microphone today?
as bad as last time. Hey,
Okay, Nima. So could you explain what we're gonna do today?
Okay, so the Tenhobu ended last week, right? Yeah, last week. So that was mainly just kind of a trial run to maybe help people play a little bit more competitively, see how they can improve. We did these game reviews, talking through some things to help people just kind of sharpen their skills. But now that it's done, I think we're going to talk today a little bit more about other ways that you could train and improve your skills.
Yes.
And today,
And then we have invited Daisuke again.
yes.
so
Okay.
So Daisuke, Daniel,
what's up, Masa?
how you doing the training in the daily? I know everybody when they started, they are not that good, right? Because they're beginners. So what was your experience? Or what did you realize to start doing it?
So originally, when I started wanting to get better at Mahjong, the first thing I did was, like most people, just kind of like find some strategy articles and kind of look up, like, oh, are the strategies in Mahjong? And some really nice ones are on Osamuko, the blog, where X Kime's tile efficiency articles, as well as Umai Keiki's defensive articles, are all on there. And so those helped me immensely starting off.
So how long does it?
How long does it take? That's a fun question. So Mahjong is just like oh, someone has some feedback, but anyway, Mahjong is just like any skill, and so it's something you just have to like build up over time. You can't just unlike the animes, you can't just go on like one single like weekend vacation training trip and then come back with Mahjong superpowers. If only that was the case. Mahjong in any skill, like if you're playing piano, if you're learning how to play the guitar, like anything, is something that you just build up slowly over time, daily and consistently. And so I know like a lot of people, will just like play Mahjong, and that can be good, but it can also be not so good because if you're just like playing Mahjong every day, let's say you just go over there on Tenho and you play a game a day, or let's say you're like playing 50 games a day. So it can be good if you are playing to kind of like get better. If you're like constantly looking at each of your discards, like, all right, what should I be discarding here? What did I discard? But if you're just playing, then eventually you're going to get to a point where you just kind of reach a plateau, or you're just like playing a game and it's just like on autopilot, it feels like. Because the way your brain works is if you do something, then as you do it again, you get faster, you get more accurate, and keep doing the same thing over and over and over. So what that means is like practice itself doesn't make you better. Because if you're doing the wrong type of practice, all you're doing is basically training yourself to do like the bad things, basically faster and faster and faster. And so then it comes to a point where you're like, oh, I can play a game of Tenho and just like, autopilot the entire thing. And you're still stuck at like whatever dawn you're at. On the other hand, if you're just constantly looking at your play, if you're constantly doing practice, not with the intention of just like playing Mahjong, but more so doing practice with the intention of like looking at your problems, finding like, all right, where am I messing up, where can I get better, how can I like focus on like this thing. Let's say, I don't know, I keep accidentally throwing the Dora without noticing it's the Dora. How do I like make a practice so that I won't ever do this again? How do I make a practice so that I won't accidentally push this Tanya Dora against like a dealer Riichi. What are like the ways I can go about, you know, making myself stop doing these mistakes that I noticed I'm doing?
I strongly agree with it. Like I play like long enough, but I didn't realize my problem, and I just kept playing. And then a lot of like fundamental part, I think I just skipped it, including like calculating the points, like fools and stuff. So now we go back to like fundamental, like do it again, do it again. Now, like after we started LAPOM, play with Daniel and everybody, I kind of realized like why I didn't realize those mistakes. So like discussion with like friends or other players that could help, and at the same time like reading books, okay, and yeah, not just only like playing, like reviewing the game is very helpful, I think. What about Nima? What do you think?
I agree with everything Daniel said. Like, it is important to consciously try to improve. Playing by itself is good, but like you said, at a certain point, you're not going to be getting any better if you're not like actually looking for your mistakes. And I've seen some players they skip over the fundamentals and they just think, oh, I have a handle on that. I don't need to work on it. And then it doesn't really end up going that well for them.
So like let's give them like a easy example. Like Nima, how long did you how long are you playing the Mahjong?
I think it's been 3 years now.
3 years now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've been playing like almost 20 years. And then Nima, I think he already caught me up. That's how I think he studied a lot. But I didn't in between. Like 15 years, I didn't study. I just kept playing.
Yeah, I mean, I mostly just played casually for like the vast majority of that time, but I started playing more seriously within the past 6 to 9 months, I guess. But yeah, it's a lot of studying. I also looked at Osamuko when I was trying to get better. There's that. And of course, we have to mention Riichi Book 1.
Oh yeah. Like for this couple months, we trying to do this live stream, and many times the Riichi Book 1, the topic is coming up, and I'm wondering like how many of you guys read the Riichi Book 1. I'm sorry, I didn't read the Riichi Book 1 because I can't read long English books.
Masa, in your case, you just need to go read all of what is it?
I need to have a dictionary.
Obakanko.
Yeah, I like comics better.
A lot of that book is from Katayama's series as well. So
yeah, that one has like a really good lesson in the manga. So it is fun to read, and then at the same time, you could learn. Nima, have you ever read the Obakamiko?
I've not heard of that before. No.
Okay, let's read it later.
Okay.
a lot of the if you read Riichi Book 1, Daina Chiba, a lot of the little lessons that he has in there and like rule of thumbs is from that book or from that manga series.
Oh, okay.
Katayama, the writer of that, Katayama Sensei, he doesn't write mangas. He writes Mahjong strategy books disguised as mangas.
But they're all in Japanese, I assume.
Yes. I don't believe there's any translations for Obakamiko right now, unfortunately.
But I heard some of them are working, and then wasn't it?
I did hear at one point that like I forget who it was, Martin Rep. Someone basically got permission from Katayama Sensei to like translate like the first like 5 volumes or something. Though I think they were like lost to obscurity.
So what else? Like anything else like we can recommend to try? Or like let's go with like a beginner, intermediate, and like advanced player. Let's focus on the beginner player now.
All right. So for the beginner player, definitely two of the most important things, actually, let's start with one. One of the most important things in Mahjong is tile efficiency. Because if you can't finish a hand faster than your opponents, then chances are you're going to be losing out a lot of the time.
What about Nima? Do you have any advice for beginners?
I mean, yeah, tile efficiency is definitely the most important thing.
Yeah, Nima keep talking like tile efficiency in the regular play. So
yeah, and at that beginner level, I don't want to say defense isn't important, but it should definitely take a back seat because a lot of new players, they might be too worried about dealing in. But if you're at that level, I think it's okay to just play pure efficiency and not worry too much about defense. Because if you just start folding every hand as soon as someone Riichis, it's gonna be tough to win, right?
Yeah, and then when you're winning the hands, it's more fun.
And
right?
Yeah, it's and defense is so like granular. Like there's a lot of levels to it. So at the beginner level, it's mainly just Genbutsu and Suji, right? You can't teach much more until they until they start getting better, and once they learn how to progress their hands, play efficiently, then they'll start seeing like, oh, this is how this hand shape was made, and then that will help them with defense later on.
Okay, so and then like go back to the fundamental, do it again, like again, until you get like fully understand. And then what's the next step to become the intermediate?
I don't really have
in Dinah's Mahjong book. He talks a lot about like push pull, and that's the conscious like decision of like, you know, when should you push or when should you fold, because even if you know, like, you know, let's say you read through those defensive guides and you know how to do great defense, but if you don't know when to defend or if you don't know when to attack, then that's one of like the biggest aspects in Mahjong. And so even from like a very, very simple level of, you know, just a tiny like rule of thumb, for instance, like, I don't know, you know, push and try to reach with like, you know, a not a bad weight and just reach Unomi before anyone else does. And if someone else reaches and your hand is not in tempai, then fold. Simple, like a little simple system like that, a little simple rules or like a promise to yourself that you try to keep while you play. That's kind of like how you get better. And then as you slowly start to, like, you know, notice like exceptions to these rules, then you just like add it on. And so as you're playing, you're basically just like, you know, trying to keep all these promises to yourself. And then sometimes, you know, a lot of the mistakes that a player makes while playing isn't necessarily something that they don't know. Because there's two types of mistakes. A mistake where it's like, oh, I should have, you know, done this thing because so-and-so, you know, informed me that there's this thing that I didn't know about that I should probably do. And then there's the mistake where it's like, oh, I know with the current knowledge that I have that I should have done this right here, but instead I did this right here. And the second mistake is really important because you can look at your own play and you can go and see kind of like what should you do with what you know. And if you're doing that, then that's great. But for the cases that you're not, for the cases like, you know, like, oh, I accidentally like pushed right here when I knew I should have like folded. Those are the things that you can definitely work on and definitely fix.
Yeah, and in addition, my opinion, like some of the players, they they start focusing like too much result. But meanwhile, in the process, like they totally skipped and then they just focusing on the result. I mean, those are kind of hard to explain, but like, in another words, like don't just like depend on the luck too much instead of like thinking or miss the information or I need someone's help to explain.
I get it.
Those are like really tough topic.
So, yeah, one of the things that a lot of people get really frustrated at when playing Tenho, or like any kind of like ranking system is, you know, you start to play and then you see your points go up and you're like, yeah, or then you see your points go down, you're like, no, or you play a game and you felt you played it really good, but then you get like a 4th place, or you're like, oh, I'm the dealer and I have this great Pinfu Dora Riichi on the 6th turn. And then someone reaches after you and rounds you with the Baimon, and you're like, wow, screw Mahjong, I hate this game. Whenever you're playing Mahjong, or like Tenho or anything, like, you know, the most important thing is like have fun. The second thing is like whenever you're looking at, oh, am I getting better? Am I getting better? Don't look at your results. Don't look at, oh, I'm a 3rd Dan today, I must be doing better. And the next day you're 2nd Dan, you're like, wow, I must be doing worse. That's not necessarily the case. So I guess the easiest way to kind of like tell skill in Mahjong is look at what you're doing that you couldn't do before. And so some examples to that might be, I don't know, like once you read, like if you read Dinah's Riichi Mahjong Book 1, just having like, you know, the conscious decision making, and then also like the conscious just like knowledge of like where am I at, what am I supposed to be doing, and how am I supposed to be doing that. And then you build upon that. You're going to find a lot of uncertainties, but that's okay, because those uncertainties are basically how you can get better at the game. Basically like a little guidebook of like, all right, where should I go next?
Okay, and here we have a special guest just joined. Today's guest will be Kenji.
That's how you bring me in? That's how I come in as a special guest?
He was here, so this
I was
like
here for about 5-10 minutes.
Yes. Day before, we had a reach out Mahjong friends guest as a Nima, and then the week before we had a guest as Daniel. So today, total like special edition, just like discussion. So
no interviews. No interviews.
Let me do it. I wanted to do this for a long time. So Kenji,
okay,
take it away.
I didn't know that was a word that you always wanted to say. Okay.
So today we're just talking about like how else we can get better, and we're just talking about like for beginners recommended some of the training. And then now we're talking about for the intermediate, like how to become the intermediate player. And then later on, I think we could talk about the advanced stuff. But for the advanced stuff, I think we need help with the Daniel and the Nima. It's going to be hard.
We need an advanced player to discuss that part.
Let's invite us. I think that'll work.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me just call him real quick, right? But yeah, kind of going back to maybe from the beginner part, from where I picked off, of course, have fun. That's how you're going to get into it. Enjoying the game, understanding the Yaku, right? And after that, the intermediate part would be, that's when strategy comes in, is my understanding. So what's the breaking point between a beginner that just wants to have fun, win or lose, or, you know, of course they want to win, but maybe more luck based, going into the intermediate part, which would be more strategy, right? I think Daniel mentioned this in a certain way. I might be rephrasing it, but accepting defeat and trying to learn from those defeats. That is a mindset. Of course, repeating the same thing over and over. I'm going to give this analogy because this is what I went through. So I do jiu-jitsu on the side, BJJ, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, whatever you guys want to call it. So I do that aside from Mahjong. That's my other passion, right? And I've been doing that longer than Mahjong. And I haven't learned any quote quote new moves in a long time. I've been sticking with the fundamentals. Because, you know, for multiple reasons. But for example, if you do the fundamentals for X amount of time, compared to someone that does the fundamentals and do the intermediate stuff right afterwards, sometimes the people that go intermediate forget the fundamental. You're supposed to build off of the fundamentals, but sometimes you kind of want to do the fancy stuff first, and then forget what the basics are. Right. So that's something that always remember the roots. In Mahjong's case, that would mean multiple things. That would mean, of course, always have fun while playing in an intense match. But at the same time, you're still progressing, right? Whether it be going over your haifu, whatever it may be that you do. That's another thing. Also teaching people, I would say, as intermediate. Because when you teach someone, you're reiterating what you know. You're
That's a good point.
Yeah, like myself, when I'm teaching jiu-jitsu at my club, you know, I get some questions from other, you know, beginner players, and sometimes I don't have the right answer. Sometimes I do, but I have to reword certain things so they'll understand it better. So in a sense, I'm chewing these things for them and spoon fooding it easier. If that's a good analogy, I'm not sure. But at the same time, if I'm chewing the food to give to them, the more I chew, the more flavor I get. I'll understand the texture more. The second time, I might understand the flavor more, and stuff like that. So that might be another way to become intermediate, by teaching the beginners.
What do you think, Nemo, in that?
That makes sense. The analogy was very interesting.
Okay. Maybe it wasn't the best one. Maybe it wasn't the best one. Right, so beginner, you're a baby. Intermediate, you're an adult.
No.
And then advanced, you're old. Right?
I see.
You're just...
I remember, isn't it like everybody? I think everybody has some certain time, like when the time comes, like when you get like a little bit of confidence. Don't you want to start playing against like somebody better or somebody stronger? Like you hear?
Competitive people, yes.
Yeah, competitive. Yeah. So,
might not be for everyone.
Yeah, what happened to me? Yeah, I was playing at the beginner. I was playing with my friend, and then now I wanted to challenge to somebody, I guess better, or they play longer, and then that's how I started finding the more stronger Mahjong player. So I drove all the way to visit someone else's house or some of the Mahjong parlor. Because I never played in Japan. I learned Mahjong here. So that was, I started to look for good players. That's how we found maybe Shisho and who else? I think I played Komai-san a long time ago too. It was kind of like really fun moment. And I think Nima just explained like similar experience.
Yeah, like you mean on Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a lot more fun to play against stronger players, and it helps you improve as well.
Yeah, and then Daniel is too crazy. I think he hit the moment and then he went to Japan straight. So how was the experience in Japan, Daniel? Like how was your like Mahjong level when you were in Japan?
So originally I learned how to play Mahjong at UT or University of Texas, and then I played like my friends, and then I got to like the best of them. It's like, oh, I want to get better, and so go and play on Tenho a lot. So I played on a lot of Tenho before I actually went to Japan. And I still play like with my friends in real life a lot as well. But before I went to Japan, I didn't have like a lot of experience playing with like the really like fast like Japanese, or where it's like if you're playing with friends, it's like, yeah, you slowly like figure out, oh, how many points is this hand. But if you're playing in like a Janso or a Japanese mahjong parlor, then as soon as like you lay down your hand, you're immediately supposed to answer like, oh, 5,200 or whatever. So yeah, 10 Hawaiis, I was like like fifth dan when I originally went to Japan. And going into like mahjong parlors for the first time was pretty interesting. It's like there's like a lot of stuff you gotta have to do just kind of like get up to speed. Though I played a lot at mahjong parlors. I always laugh to my friends because they're like, oh, I don't want to stay at the parlor for more than like 2 hours. I want to go do other stuff. But when I was originally in Japan, for the year that I stayed there, the shortest amount of time I stayed in a Janso, I think, was like for 12 hours.
Oh.
That's
You
crazy.
said shortest, right? Not the longest. You said shortest.
Yes, that is the shortest.
Okay, just making sure.
Oh,
Like
and I came up with one more like interesting story. Like recently, that what happened to me was I was playing Mahjong for a long time, but in here in LA, when they win out the hands, they didn't call out the points. They just go for like mangan or hareman, and I thought that was like just the normal stuff. And then when I start playing with Aruto, and he already back to Japan, but he was start pointing out like, why you keep saying like mangan? It's not mangan. It's 8,000, or you need to call out in the points. And I didn't know. So that was like a good lesson. And then now we start claiming like how many points you want. So that was a good lesson. Like so. What my suggestion is at the same time the manner wise or like what's going on in Japan at the Janso or not in Janso, like learning is kind of fun because you don't need to learn everything, but like new knowledge or new information that's kind of good to know, right? Because other rules has other let's say the place like when you visit different places, they have another rules or another manners, but you need to follow that manner. Is the most important. Like don't just say like, oh, it's wrong. Kin-san, I need your help to explain.
I think what he's trying to say is that we've always mentioned this when we play, right? There is no right or wrong. There is no final answer. There might be a right or wrong depending on the region. Like rule-wise, there might be a right or wrong, but that's a rule. That's a given, right? It's not a subjective thing. Mahjong, when it comes to the actual skill, your decision making, there is no right or wrong. No one could say that's the wrong move. Right, but there's the most efficient. There might be a more logical answer, but there is no right or wrong.
I really like that. I really like that. There's no right or wrong in mahjong because and this is another thing, especially if you were working with beginners, because if you're like higher up player, the more you learn, the more you will forget. In that. A lot of the stuff that it took like you a really long time to kind of like consciously figure out when you were like a newer player, your mind just immediately can like figure that stuff out now, and it's a thing called automaticity, and that's how humans are able to like evolve to a point where we do really complex tasks. And so what this means is that you get better, but you kind of like forget that you got better, and you just kind of like assume like, oh yeah, it's just like this thing, like Shanten. How many Shanten are you in? What, you don't know how to count your Shanten? What are you doing? So whenever you're looking at like like what should a person discard, don't just use like what you know, because that doesn't matter. We all know you're great at Mahjong. That means absolutely nothing. What does matter is what does the person that you're teaching know? where are they at? What is the best move
be in
their knowledge? Yes. Because, you know, if you're like, oh, you should cut this because the Nakasuji right here and all that stuff, where it's like, oh, great, you cut that because, you know, you're just trying to, I don't know, like fold against Riichis, and if you don't have any safe tiles, go from honors to 1s and 9s and 2s and 8s. And as people like can do that, as people can just like, you know, build upon what they know, that's when they can actually start getting better. So definitely be careful with that because, you know, if person A asks person B, what should I discard here? Person B might answer one thing, but if you ask another person who maybe is like a higher level player than that person, they might answer another thing. And if you ask another person that's even higher level than them, they might answer another thing. And the pattern just continues because there are some people that well, I mean, everyone is on a different skill level. Everyone has a different set of skills that they have.
So does your
so yes, exactly. And oh my god, yeah, a lot of times, you know, your opponent does something stupid and you're like, why the hell do you do that? But do know that, like, you know, there is no incorrect move for your opponent.
I hear similar sounds from Sylvan a lot these days.
Oh man, yeah, Sylvan. Have fun with him, by the way.
No, he's really nice. He's actually come LAPOM at the I think he visited like first, and then he's helping us to clean up the tiles.
Nice.
He's really nice one.
So that's also another, you know, beginner mentality, I guess. I'm gonna give this jiu-jitsu analogy again, but everybody starts as a white belt. You're eager, you're hungry, you're gonna do all this thing. Eventually, you want to be a black belt, right? Eventually, but a true black belt does not have a black belt mentality. A true black belt would always have a white belt mentality. Being no ego, always be open to you know, show the ropes, be open to learn new things. So the white belt mentality is the black belt mentality. Does that make sense? Any listeners out there practice jiu-jitsu? Yeah.
Or it's like, you know, even if you're, let's say, a 5th dan or a 6th dan on Tenho, there still might be something that a 4th dan or like a 3rd dan knows that you don't.
Yeah.
Always keep your, you know, like an open mind on like a lot of things.
Brian's watching. Do you guys have any comment for Brian?
I think
the other way around.
For Brian's some special personal advice, don't throw the Dora.
Yeah, that's another rule that you could tell yourself, right? That's
all right. This is a good thing. So don't throw the Dora, but how does he not throw the Dora?
Yeah, I think you're trying to say, you know, just holding on it, even though you're not going to use it, or holding on it so you can use it. Brian says, be nice. That's also another good one. I have never thrown any Dora before.
Oh, we know that's not true.
Never.
Well, that might be the case for Ikshi. The Dora keeper. But yeah.
I like the Dora thing because it's like in our group, like we have, you know, like Rachel like always does the Dora, and it's like, oh, the turn after it's like, oh, that was the Dora.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, in Mahjong you have 2 parts. It's like knowing what to do and then actually doing it.
I think though
it's like, how do you get to that second part though?
I think it's a different thing though, at least with Bryant. And this could be true of a lot of people. When you play on Tenho, there's red Dora, right? So each individual Dora isn't worth as much. So
because we usually playing like no Akadora, so
right. So you would feel more free to throw like the extra Dora you can't use because there's 6 more, right? You don't really need that one. But that changes a lot when there's no red Dora. Each Dora becomes a lot more precious, and since the scores of your hands will naturally be lower, the Dora has more of an impact.
I wonder other clubs are they using like red 5 or without red 5?
Some play with red 5, some play without red 5s.
And
So it's like 50-50?
Most people play without red 5s nowadays. I know like the Chicago club still plays with red 5s, but I think most all the
Oh,
other
really?
clubs are using like WRC rules for the most part.
and like it's, I guess the point I was trying to make is that you have to adapt to the rule set that you're playing. Like we,
It's like they're like slightly different, right?
well, even that small difference can change the way you play in a big way, I think.
But I guess like really advanced player, they could play in both sides.
Right.
Because I heard like let's say in the tempos like high down players like 10 downs, they are also good at the tempo, right? Obviously, but most of them they play at the parlor too, and then I heard they must be really good.
Don't
Yeah.
I don't know, but don't parlors have like similar rules to Tenho, like red 5s and all that?
Close,
Yeah.
very close, I think. But
mean,
I have never played, so I read it from the comic, so
yeah, Daniel would know
my
best,
knowledge
right?
is about the same with you guys. So.
I guess like some good examples of this is like Asapine. Like, you know, Asapine is like destroys Tenho. He got to the highest level twice. And even in like real tournaments using completely different rule sets, he's still really, really good. He works at different parlors, and parlors compared to Tenho, once you get to the highest level of Tenho, the way you approach the game is very different compared to the bottom rules, to the bottom rooms, because a single fourth place is worth 2 first places, which is insane. And so it kind of becomes like a paradigm shift once you get to like the highest room for like the second half of the game. But yeah, as long as you're good, then you know like what you're doing and why you're doing it. And so as soon as you like, you know, change the rule set, you know what you should be doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah, something about he is keep talking like you cut from the 9-pin to 7-pin or 7-pin to 9-pin for like 2-3 hours. I think that was his like example, but that he is like he's crazy.
Slipping is
it's like for normal players it's hard to understand, but I think those like advanced players, they could see what's the difference in like certain situation, I guess. That was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So again, 7 or 9 doesn't mean that you should discard 9 all the time. It's case by case. Depends on the situation.
Yeah, and at that level, every little bit is going to make a difference.
Yeah.
So
even the seating will make a difference. Where you sit.
Though, and this is one thing. Whenever you look at like Mahjong strategy, so there's different levels in Mahjong strategy. And I was reading a book the other day that was kind of explaining like it is one of Fukuji's books. Is explaining how to get better at Mahjong, and is saying basically you're just getting rid of your mistakes. Except there's like different types of mistakes. There's like, you know, really, really big mistakes. There's like pretty big but lesser big, and then there's smaller mistakes. So if you like think of them like money, then like the small mistake is like 10 cents. A bigger mistake is like, you know, $1. A really big mistake is like $10. And so even if you like, you know, reduce your really small mistakes, let's say like, you know, like a small mistake might be like, oh, you should have thrown the 7-pin before that 9-pin right there. When you compare that to like, you know, the really big mistakes, like, wow, why were you pushing the dealer in South 3 as first place with like your Tanyao, Nomi, that like cost you the game. The big parts are a lot more weighted. And so like whenever you're moving forward, definitely like, you know, look at like the bigger picture, look at these like really big things. And that's kind of what like Riichi Book 1 focuses on. These what would be classified as like, you know, like these class A mistakes.
Hello, are we there?
Yes.
So anything else, like any other topics you want to add?
Any questions from any of the viewers?
Yeah, for viewers. Or should I go find somebody else to join the guest? One more guest? Let's go look
Such
for
as?
somebody. Q.
You.
Oh, George is online, but he's kind of busy, so let's see. Can't really find that. Mula say he's busy, so who else? I can't really find anybody. Let's ask Q. Oh. So meanwhile, somebody's making comments. Hello, I was still thinking about staying in the Janso for more than 12 hours regularly. Sorry. He said that's a level of concentration I cannot maintain, to be honest. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, at the LAPOM, we made a new word like Mahjong muscle.
Mahjong muscle.
we play a lot, so we get used to it. But when you go to the tournament, we can still play like 5 another game.
Truthfully, I don't suggest going and playing at Janso or even on Tenho for like 12 hours. To give you an example, when I got out of college originally, I went to play more Mahjong, right? So I was playing around 50 tonpusen a day on Tenho. And even like, like 2 years or 3 years back or so, like with working full time, I was trying to play like, 8 hanchan a day or something like that. If you're trying to get better, yes, at the very beginning, you do need to play every single day. And even later on, you still need to practice every single day. But it gets to a point where the way you're able to stay at a Janso for 12 hours or play 50 Tenho games a day, or if you go and like spend 30 hours at a Janso, not that I've done that, is because you're just using what you've already built. You're just using basically these habits. Like you're an autopilot almost, basically. And as long as you built it good, then it's great. But the problem is that doesn't make you any better. That just kind of like confirms what you know, and you're using that. So if you are trying to get better at Mahjong, rather than playing, like 50 games a day on Tenho, one single game where you're just giving like your entire full focus and every single discard, you're asking yourself, what should I do? Not instantly discarding like, oh, it's obvious, I should discard that. No, stop and think. Think like, all right, should I discard this? Why should I discard this? What information do I have? And yeah, that seemed to work for me some.
Yeah, in this topic, I think we should invite Aki, because he might have like really good topic to talk about. But he's not using the Discord, so not this time. I just we invited the Q.
Hey guys.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey Q.
So Q-chan, were you watching our stream?
Oh, I just got here actually.
Okay. Hey, we just discussing with like Nima and Daniel and Kenji with me. Is there another way to get better in Mahjong? Like any other trainings or like theory or method, or do you have anything to want to share with us? Like we just finished the beginner, intermediate, and then we just like randomly talking about.
My experience involves persistence. You just keep going. Try to get better. You will find how would I say, walls? Sometimes when you'll find yourself in trouble, you're confused as to what's wrong with your mahjong. Why am I losing so much, or why am I not winning? And a lot of that just goes with a lot of self-reflection. In fact, that's happening to me right now, actually.
there an answer, or is there some kind of hint that you found?
A lot of it. When it comes to paying attention, I'm actually pretty bad at that. But that's what it takes. You gotta find what's wrong. You know, if you're having trouble with your mahjong, you gotta find what's wrong.
Like, what's the point? Like, what's the, how do you say? Like, you keep making similar mistakes, right?
Yeah, and they're quite bad. You know, but they're bad symptoms.
Yeah, and then
how do you fix those symptoms?
System. One, you gotta find it, because if you can't find it, then you don't even know it. You know that it's there.
So the real life.
How do you find it?
how do you realize?
So for finding your symptoms, I have a cool little thing you can do. So it takes a little bit of time, but if you were to like look at one of your replays and just step by step, just using only the knowledge that you know, make the best decision of what should I discard here. How accurate do you think that your choices would be to what you actually did in the game? But you guys
what about
think it would be
taking
like
memos?
Memos works too. But do you think like that would be like 100% perfect, Masa? Do you think if you looked at your replay and you went step by step and you're like, oh, I would do this, do you think you would do that all the time?
No, like I didn't take memo, but like while you playing the 10 hole, and then there's like a point like you really wanted to see the opponent's hands, or you're guessing in the right time, and then you just like take the memo and then review the game.
Memos are really good for figuring out like the stuff like that you like don't know. So it's like if you're playing a game, you're like, oh, I don't know what to throw with this hand, so you just jot down real quick, East to 7 discard.
Yeah.
Then you can just go back and look at it. Yeah. But for the mistakes that you don't know you're making, in other words, for the mistakes that you don't think are mistakes, one example of this might be like, you know, let's say you just threw like, you know, you pushed the dealer and you dealt in really horribly. Sometimes you might notice that because you'll go back and look at your replays of why did I lose this game? Where did I deal in? But a lot of the times, you know, what your bad things that you do will go completely unpunished. It might actually be good. You might have pushed that dealer with your Tanya and you got it and it won you the game. Good job. Or something like that. But if you go through your replays and just kind of look, just that what you know, like, oh, what should I have done here? Oh, I should do this. And you do something else. Then that's why, and you're like, oh, wow, I know from like whatever, like Riichi Book 1 or just with my current knowledge that I should have done this, but instead I did this. Why is that? And the answer is, well, even though you consciously know, like, oh, I should make this choice, you're wired to basically make another choice. And so if you don't address that problem, if you just kind of like ignore it and skip over it, and it's like, oh, I should not discard the Dora, then you're going to keep making that same mistake over and over and over because it's a habit. You can't just say no to a habit. The only way you can fix that is you have to overwrite it with something new.
I think that's the good advice for Q from Daniel.
And I think I have a good way to...
Sorry.
Go ahead.
It's been a long series of writing one habit over another, though.
Oh, no. That's like how to realize. That's the part. Because how long Daniel stuck in the 6 dan? Or 5 dan? Like get into the whole table?
I was stuck at 5 dan for a while because
I think that's gonna happen for everyone.
Well,
and then Q almost right. You reached the 6 dan recently, right?
I came
if
close.
I remember correctly.
Almost
no, I never
6
made
dan.
6.
Oh, sorry. So you came back to 5.
I never made it to 6, but I felt like there came a point where 6 dan felt like it was within reach, but suddenly I'm back to level.
So I think that's kind of like Daniel's advice. Like maybe that could work.
And if you're if anyone
was trying to say something earlier.
Oh yeah, so
Nima.
Oh yeah,
Nima?
so that actually was the the reason I started doing those Tenho streams. I think I mentioned this before, but if you're streaming and you have to explain your choices to everyone watching, you can't just get away with autopilot. You have to like consciously think through your decisions and be able to validate them. Yeah, you can't just go and play and be like, you can't make those mistakes that go unchecked. And you have to actually take your time. Pressure. Yeah.
I think imagine autopilot. Others could also learn from that at the same time too. So.
You mentioned autopilot. Autopilot is a nasty thing, dude.
No Tesla owners here?
Tesla.
So that
driving
Daniel,
is like the exact
do you do those Tenho live streams sometimes?
I used to, but then I had one particular Russian continually screen cheating my streams, and so I haven't in a long time.
I see. So I think Nemo and Daniel should work together sometime. Like, hello,
can hear
both of you guys. Why don't we play Tenho?
Now?
Not now. Like later, like maybe next week or next week. Set the time and like reviewing game.
All right.
We could.
Yeah. That would be like really good reviewing series. So again, we went back to the idea of reviewing the game. So I guess that's really works.
I mean, that's an important part of improving, right? You have to look at your mistakes and try to find them first of all, and then see what you can do to fix them.
Yeah.
That's
Plus,
that
having
can
somebody else see the quote mistakes for you and point them out, because you might not notice it, you may never notice it, even though you review it. Having somebody else give a suggestion, be open to that suggestion. The suggestion may or may not be right. Again, there is no right answer, so everything's subjective. Right? Like, let's say if somebody Riichis, you have a Genbutsu, you have something like that, but at the same time, probability-wise, do 9 pins as well, for example. Let's say, for example. So you discard the 9 pin, but there's that one chance that 9 pin's there. And at the same time, you have a pretty decent hand, and you dealt in. Now, is that a mistake? Would somebody consider that as a mistake? You have a Genbutsu, but you have a high point hand. It's the only way that they could say wrong is if they have the only other one left. Would that be a mistake? Would you consider that as a mistake? And if so, how would you implement that quote mistake into your next game?
I think a lot of that stuff of like whenever you do reviews with people, I think it's really important to kind of like look at your own stuff and be like, what would I do and what are the mistakes that I see? Because if I review Nima's game, I'm like, Nima, what the hell are you doing right there? Aside from like some obvious stuff which might like be like like kind of like apparent, a lot of the choices in Mahjong are just done with what you know and the knowledge that you have. And so it's hard to say, it'd be easy to say like, oh, you should do this. But for a lot of people, it's like, what should I do with the knowledge that I have?
Yes.
And then if you're reviewing someone else's game, rather than saying, oh, you fucked up, it might be better to say, hey, what about this information? Have you considered, incorporating, I don't know, the number of safe Suji tiles remaining into your decision making? Did you consider the estimated value of your hand in this decision making? Rather than just coming down.
In other words, just dealing into someone does not necessarily mean that that's a mistake. I mean, for maybe most of the cases, in most cases it might be because maybe somebody discarded a certain tile without considering that it's a Dora, that it's a live tile, whatever it may be, right? In that case, yes, it might be considered a mistake. But
On the same
I
note,
think what we're saying, yes.
just because you did, or I mean, something good happened. Let's say you like won a big hand, doesn't mean it was the right choice either.
Yes, exactly. That's also there might be some luck involved. Your opponents, their level might also be in factor. There's a lot of things that will be in factor, right? Where was I getting at this? Oh yeah. Earlier we were saying, you know, make a rule for yourself. Like, let's say it could be one simple thing like not discarding Dora, for example. Not saying that's the right thing to do, but you know, for example, and if it's working out for the most part, keep that in your back pocket, in your knowledge base, saying that, oh, that seems to work. Next time, add another rule, which would eventually be renamed to something as experience, as knowledge. And then, yeah, your Mahjong journey, kind of like a journal. It's a never-ending thing. Pages keep on piling up. Like, I have my own Mahjong notebook or journal. It's a digital version because I like to keep it digital. But you know, if I read something that makes total sense, I'll write it down or type it down, tap it down. Try to reread it before a game, before I know I'm going to be playing a full day, for example. And if I did something wrong, at the end of the day, I reread the notes and say, okay, maybe that discard, I forgot to follow this rule or this thing. Maybe that's why it caused it. It's a little tedious, but so far where I'm at, it's been working. I see some improvement. Not saying that that's the go-to answer for everything, but for now, at where I am, it's been. So maybe some of you guys out there, if you guys are in a similar situation, do something like that. I've heard a lot of people do similar things. It's just my 2 cents.
It's true for also like just like even like any like sports. Like if you look at a lot of like pro athletes or like professional musicians or whatnot, like keeping notes is a really, really good thing. Because not only is it kind of like a testament to yourself of you can look at your old notes and see like what you can now instantly do that before, you know, you really tried really hard to. But also it's like if you're asking yourself, well, where do I go next? It kind of forms like that guide map of like, oh, okay, I can go like down this route.
Yeah. And that's essentially what a strategy book is, right? From all the pros in Japan. Like Hisato Noto, that's a good example. That was literally his note when he was in college. Something that he jotted down that eventually became a book. And a lot of people read it, takes note by it.
And also, like, watching the pro games could help too.
Yes, that's also another thing.
Like trying to figure out, like even though you don't understand the commentary, but try to figure out like why this guy throw this one, not this one.
Do be careful with that though, because if you're trying to, if you don't have any commentary, and you're just trying to figure out like what a player does, you can not only be completely wrong, but you could have a lot of misconceptions from it.
That's true. Picking up bad habits.
Well, one very simple example of this is there is a player on Tenho called Zero who has been like 9 Dawn, 10 Dawn, 9 Dawn, 10 Dawn. He's been going through that cycle, and he's viewed as one of the strongest players on Tenho. He has a blog where he writes basically his comments on like the games and his decisions, and a lot of them are absolutely like amazing, just like bringing into like a attention to detail that you would just like not even comprehend. It's like a wonder. But you read these and you're like, wow, if I was ever looking at his game and trying to figure out why did he throw that, I would 100% never guess this. So if you are going to look at someone's game, one thing I would suggest is look at a person that is really close to your level, but like probably just like one step above you.
There's a difference. That's a new advice.
There's a difference between you and that person, because that person is like, like a higher level than you, right? So they know something, some good things that you don't know. They might not all do like great things. They might make mistakes, and you might be able to see those mistakes. But they're still doing stuff that you wouldn't. What is that? What is that? What's the difference between you and that person? And if you can advance like that way, then rather than absorb watching like a Tenho's game or Tenhoi's game where you have no idea what's going on, if you watch a person just one step above you, you can get a lot easier idea of like, where should I go?
Yeah.
You can get a lot more, if you're like stepping through each discard and like, what would they discard or what would I discard? It's going to be the same a lot. And then only certain things will be different. And so you can narrow down like, where you can go and where you can get better a lot easier.
I see. That's I think really good point. Like, I wanted to test it out.
No, that's a good function for that because you can view.
So. We should find somebody in like Tendan to watch the game, right?
Done. Yes, Tendan.
No, just kidding.
So like,
because they're just one step, one level above. Right? There's only one level.
Like five Dan 6 Dan game.
I usually do like 1 Dan higher, and then like 100 R.
Okay.
On Tenho.
That's a good idea. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, because we went over like some Tenhoi games, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
Yeah, it was.
If you've ever read Asapin's book, like, yeah, good luck with some of those.
I mean, it's really hard to understand, but like every guessing, like me and Nemo made, like okay, this guy's gonna discard this one. No, like why? That guy like Oras, like he started chi or pong from the first discard, and then like no yaku, like what? That's like a lot of like a lot of stuff like we don't get it.
Bluffing maybe. I don't know.
Maybe that's like we're guessing.
Yeah.
Maybe those stuff. Yeah, we should ask somebody in that level, but we might never get understand.
So for the majority of the people out there, what's gonna be a solution for the majority of the people out there that play with their other 2-3 friends? Record their hand, maybe on their smartphone. Record it. Commentary. Review
I know
afterwards.
a Japanese pro named Yumin has a book, and it talks about how to get better at Mahjong. And one thing is, if you're not playing online, you just play your games and you're done. But if you can keep a record, even just like the end game scores and of like how are you doing, and then over time you'll kind of see it's like, oh look, I have like a 20% first rate. That's not that good. And you can slowly start to see like where you're at, which is kind of like a really good thing that Tenho has, because it keeps track of like your ranking, your placement, and all that, and you can see the cold hard facts even if you really don't want to.
Also something that Kira's program has.
Which is good and bad, because as soon as you add leagues or like in Tenho rankings, people can get very like anxious. People can get very like stressed out because of them. But the important thing is, the important thing is how you do in an individual game does not affect or does not necessarily say that, oh, you're doing good or oh, you're doing bad, because you can do bad things and get rewarded. And you can do good things and get bad results. So focus on your skill and keep working at it.
So keep tracking the record.
Yes. Good way is to record all 4, rewatch it, and I guess comment. All the players are there, so you guys could comment each other. That may not be a necessarily setup that everyone could do. I know some groups out there, we record the games if not all 4 cameras, and the discards maybe 1. You know, most of us have smartphones now. As long as your memory and battery lasts. If not, you could live stream it with a private key, so it'll be up in the cloud. I think YouTube has that feature. If you don't want to share it, you could do that, store it in the cloud, and you could rewatch it privately afterwards. That's another option. Yeah, and then, you know, have commentary, like what Nima does on Tenho. I think at LAPOM, when we stream our stuff, the players there, at least the players who played, they rewatch the games on their own, because everything's displayed. Even the players that didn't play actually rewatch the games. I know Masa watches every single one of them multiple times.
Yes.
I try to watch it 1 or 2 times at least. I watch it for a different reason too, because I want our standards to be a little higher. So it might not necessarily be the actual Mahjong, but you know, different reasons. But at the same time, you know, those things are out there. We are trying to add commentary now. Technical difficulties here and there, but you know, if some of our guest commentators could give their opinions, and maybe that would enlighten some other players out there. Some people might think, what are these guys talking about? They have no idea what they're talking about. That might be the case too.
But the best part is keep trying, find your own way.
Yeah, whatever it may be. Whatever it may be. Find a way. Be creative. Think different.
Now I'm actually trying to slow down.
Yeah, speed would eventually pick up. That's what we, you know, when we have new people, they say, "Oh, we can't play as fast as."
It's not just speed.
I'm loving the comments, by the way. I'm loving the comments. I'm loving the comments.
Okay, I think it's about the time. So, guys, anything you guys want to add to shout out?
Think different. Shout that out one more time. One more time.
Daniel, I was expecting you to make some margin jokes this time too.
Mahjong jokes.
I was waiting.
Want to keep the viewers around, not chase them away.
So's far.
Yeah. So's far, so good.
I'm learning a lot of new words.
Can you not?
Can you do it? Okay, so I guess
Please,
today's
Masa, please tell me some more.
Today that's it. So you wanted to add a comment?
No, I can't think of anything else to add.
Okay. But again, I think the Tenhobu is like first season is done, and then we're gonna rethink something. We could do something new, something creative. Then we're gonna start doing the live streaming again. So let's talk something fun. Okay, Nima, you can stop now.
Okay.
Bye.
All right. See you guys.
All right.
See you later, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.